Hey everyone, we're going to solve each inequality algebraically. So the first one's kind of a little messed up a bit because it's not in standard form. I don't like the zero on this side, so what I'm going to do is rewrite this, and this is going to be negative x squared plus 6x minus 5. So that's more in standard form. And then I'm going to negate everything. So I can make my x squared positive. So it's still going to be 0, but you have to flip this sign. So that's going to be greater than x squared minus 6x plus 5. And then the next thing I'm going to do is just rewrite it. So this is what it's saying is this quantity here, this quadratic, is less than, if you read it this way, 0. So I'm going to write it as x squared minus 6x plus 5 is less than 0. And basically less than 0 means it's negative. So this quantity here is negative. Now let's factor it. We're going to get x minus 5 times x minus 1 is less than 0 or negative. Our x's are going to be x equals 5 and x equals 1. So I do a number line. Let's do a little line graph here. And I'm going to put my 1 smaller number than your larger number. And I'm going to test the intervals. So I'm going to test from negative infinity to 1, from 1 to 5, and from 5 to infinity. So if you plug in a number less than 1, let's plug in 0. If I plug in 0 into this, I get negative. I plug in 0 into this quantity, I get negative as well. Two negatives make a positive. Now for this middle interval, let's plug in 2. Remember, you can't plug in 1 or 5 because of that will just make it 0. So let's plug in 2. If I plug in 2 here, I'll get negative. If I plug in 2 into this one, I get positive. A negative times a positive is negative. Now let's plug in 6 for the last interval. If I plug in 6, so I'll just put in 6, it's going to be positive, positive. Two positives make a positive. Well, we want negative because less than 0 is negative. So this is our negative. So the way you're going to write it is you can just write this, or you can write x such that x is in between 1 and 5. Now let's do the next one. This one has an equals in it. So let's rewrite it as c squared, subtract 4 from both sides. So set it to 0. So it can equal 0 or it has to be negative. So 0 or less than 0. We factor, we get c minus 2 times c plus 2 is less than or equal to 0. If you solve for c, you get c equals 2 and c equals negative 2. So let's do our sign diagram. Put your smaller number first, then your larger number. Again, our intervals that we're looking at is from negative infinity to negative 2, negative 2 to 2, and 2 to infinity. So just pick a number less than negative 2. Let's plug in negative 3. If I plug in negative 3 in here, I'm going to get a negative. Negative 3 into this one, I'm still going to get a negative. A negative times a negative is a positive. All right, now for the middle interval, let's plug in 0. If I plug in 0, the 0 is in between these two. If I plug in 0, I'm going to get a negative, and then I'm going to get a positive. A negative times a positive is negative. And then plug in 3. If you plug in 3, you're going to get positive times a positive. That gives you positive. Well, we want negative. So this is going to be our answer right here. It does have an equal sign. So a good way to write this is in set builder notation. You write x such that x is in between -2 and 2. But since it can equal 0, you're also going to put the equal sign there. So it's going to be like that, and that's your final answer. Thank you. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.